Hey guys, welcome back to the another Sam Lama tutorials. And in this video, I'm going to explain you what is the JSON is. So the full form of the JSON is a JavaScript object notation. And I am here in a json.org websites and it literally says that JavaScript object notation right here. Okay. So basically it is the lightweight data interchange format. So that means when we try to send the data from one applications to any other applications, then we could use a JSON, and which is mostly used in APIs, and those are called the REST APIs. Okay, so the REST API, when we exchange our data from one applications to another one using the REST API, then we are using a JSON format on that one. So beside the using a JSON for sending a data from one place to another one, JavaScript use it's up to create an object. It's used the JSON format, which I'm going to show you in example here. And this JSON is very easy for human, for us to read and write, and it's also easy for machine to parse and to generate. And because it could be used in any other programming language, and there are a couple of library which will help to write or to read the JSON format, such as like in C Sharp, you could use a Newton Soft, which I have opened right here, which will allow you to create a JSON, and it will also allow you to parse the JSON. Okay, and similarly in Java, Java has their own library, I believe, and they have their own external library as well, which we can use such as like Json, like that. Okay. So let's go to the JavaScript and I'm going to show you how we can create a JSON, okay? And what are the format that we need to write to create a JSON, okay? So in JSON, basically, here it says that the value we can provide the object, array, string, number, or true or false or null, okay? So that's what we can provide. So let's jump quickly on here on VS Code. So I'm in a VS Code here. So I don't have any file. So now let me create another file here. Okay, create something called customer. So when we create a JSON, I'm going to make this a little bigger. Let me make it a little big. So when we create a JSON, the format of the file is JSON. Okay, so we could create a JSON like this dot JSON. So now this is a JSON format. So whenever we create object in JSON or in a JavaScript, then what we do, we start with a curly bracket and end with a curly bracket. And if you read this, if you can also read here, it says the object is another set of a name and value pairs that begins with the left brace and in with the right braces. So that means we can start with a curly bracket right here and in with a curly bracket. And now we can provide a key and a value pair. And it says that we can provide name and value pair is exactly the same one, the key and value pair. So what we can do, we are creating the customer. So customer has a first name, right? So we'll create a first name. And now when we do a first name, now we need to provide a colon here. Now we need to give the value. We already wrote the key and we need to add the value, same, okay? So once we add, we can save it. So now here our JSON format has been created and this is our JSON, okay? So now if we want to chain it, right? If we want to chain it, if we want to create another property here, then we can put a comma here and what we can do is we can copy the same one and of course we can do a last name now and we can provide the last name here, okay? Llama. So this is what I created. Now this is a string format. That's why what we're using here, the double quote. But we can also create an integer here, okay? As it says here, if I scroll a little bit here, it says that we can provide a numbers, we can provide array, we can provide object. So this is basically what we create is a string. Now let me create something with the number. So maybe this is a customer, okay? So I have a credit maybe. So when we do a credit, then let me do with the lowercase. I think the mostly JSON we start with the lowercase here, okay? So when we do a credit, maybe I have a credit of 100, 100. So I'll just provide the 100 here. I could also do a decimal here. It's a number, so we can also create an integer or we can also create a decimal. So now the next is what we can do is maybe we could try with the array. Okay, so maybe the customer has a couple of the ship to number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called ship to. So basically, it's going to be a collection. So when we create an array, we could use the bracket here. Now we could provide the number here if we want to provide it. We could also provide a string if I want, but let's assume that we have a ship2 of a number. So I'll provide the ship2 of a number. So now we can do like this. So this is how we can create here. And maybe now the next is the Boolean. Okay, the Boolean, let me do the active if this customer is active or not. Okay, so if the customer is active, then we could say true. If it's not active, then we could say false. Okay, so I'll do a false here, and I'll just make sure that this is also lowercase here. So now if I save it, now this is a JSON format right here. This is what the JSON create, and we could also create an inner object, right? If we see, maybe we have a variety of the address. We have an office address for customer. We have their personal home address of this, right? We have a couple of address. Then what we can do is we can create now another key value here, right? And what we do is we create a array here. So inside the array also we could create exactly like same address, same object like this. So whenever we create object, then we need to use a curly bracket. Just to remember, when we create an object, then we need to use a curly bracket. When we create an array, we create this big bracket. Okay, that's all. So now inside this array also we have the object, and we will have maybe the ID, right? We will have the ID here for key, and we set the ID number 1, and this is maybe the type is maybe the home address. Okay, so the type is a home address. Okay, so this is a home address, and maybe we'll put a home address value here, and we have another type. So what we do is we create now another object inside this array. Okay, so what we do is the type, this is going to be office address. Okay, so of course we can write it here, the address, if we want it, right? Address is a home address like 123, right? Like something called chain street, something like that, or 123 uh, uh, transport, whatever street, right? So we can provide the home address here. Okay, so that's how we create a JSON format, and we can print this JSON format in JavaScript. If I go here and if I create another file here, customer.js, so this is JavaScript. All right, guys. So this is a JSON which I wrote it here, which is good. I know it's complaining here because we need to provide the variable here. Okay, so what we do is we said that okay, customer has the JSON format. Now what we can do is we can print that customer in a JavaScript. So JavaScript understood the JSON because it's the exact same way that the JavaScript object work. So what we do is we just do console log customer. Okay, so now we're gonna run this. To run it, I have a node install. So what we can do is I can do node customer, and if I do node customer, then it's already print my name. Okay, it's already print here, this all the object it's already print, not my name, sorry, it's already print all the object. But let's assume we only want to print the first name. So what we do in JavaScript, so in the customer is the constant here. So what we do is we do a customer dot. Now it already provide, we just need a first name. So once I do save it, and if I try to run it, new terminal, and here node customer, then it print. Let me clear one more time and show you guys. If I print, it's print Sam here. Okay, that's how it's printing here. Let me print with the info. Just want to make sure that okay, it doesn't give you a color here, it's fine. But if you print this on HTML, the browser oh yeah, browser, it's give you a color, but not here. But anyway, so that's how we achieve here. But if we want to print the array of it, which is going to be in address, we have multiple address there, then what we're going to do is going to print the array, right? When we create the array, we need to create the bracket. But when we create an object, we need to use a curly bracket. We just need to remember those two. Okay, that's how we can easily create an object in JavaScript, and this is the same object that what we use for a JSON format. And there is a really good JSON formatter site uh, which you can use it to test it if your JSON is formatted well or not. If you have a large JSON and you want to make sure that okay, you want to make sure that it's correct, then you can copy your JSON, just go here and just process. And if it says valid or not. If I like there is typo, right? There is typo mistake such as like if I'm missing something like this, right? So if I copy this and if I go and paste it, if I process, then it already shows that okay, it's missing something, expecting the colon, which I have it here. It's not. So this website, the JSON format is very helpful if you have a large JSON and you want to test it that the JSON is correct format or not. So that's all for this video, guys. I hope you guys learned something new. I'm gonna put some more programming trick tips on these channels, and please let me know if you guys have any questions. And that's all for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.